The galaxy had long dismissed the myth of the ghost warship as a mere legend, a relic of an ancient past. Few took the story seriously, and even fewer believed it had any truth. The tale was passed down in hushed whispers, a warning wrapped in mystery and lost to time. The story spoke of a weapon so powerful that it had been constructed by an ancient and nearly godlike civilization, a warship designed to conquer, destroy, and ensure its creator's reign over the galaxy. But one day, as the story goes, the ship and its creators simply vanished, leaving no trace except scattered fragments of forgotten texts and broken star maps. The galaxy had moved on. Alien species, empires, and civilizations came and went, their rise and fall shaped by ambition and war. Humanity, emerging from its own ancient wars, had become a fledgling force in the galaxy, quietly building its alliances and pushing its borders outward. The myth of the ghost warship was nothing more than a curious footnote in history books, dismissed as fanciful fiction for the most part, until the day it wasn't. The exploration vessel Phoenix, part of a small human fleet sent to chart the unclaimed systems at the outer rim of known space, encountered an anomaly while surveying a remote star system. The anomaly was nothing new to the sensors. It had been there for as long as records could trace, a faint signal that flickered in and out, making it impossible to pinpoint the exact location. The Phoenix was tasked with investigating it, an assignment more about curiosity than necessity. Yet, what they found would alter the course of history forever. As the crew of the Phoenix approached the source of the anomaly, their instruments began to pick up strange readings, seemingly impossible energy signatures that had no basis in current scientific understanding. Their ship was pulled off course, entering a dense, unexplored nebula that seemed to distort their perception of space itself. For days, they struggled against the ship's malfunctioning systems, and their communications with the fleet grew weaker. But the closer they came to the epicenter of the anomaly, the stronger the readings became. Then, as if out of nowhere, the Phoenix broke through the dense cloud of nebula gas. Before them, in the darkness of space, was an enormous ship, silent and still, floating like a ghost in the void. It was a vessel unlike anything they had ever seen. Its design was alien, a mixture of ancient elegance and technological sophistication that defied conventional understanding. The ship had no visible weapons, no insignia or markings, just a dark, looming silhouette against the backdrop of the nebula. The crew stared at the ship in stunned silence. A few members whispered that this could be it, the ghost warship from the ancient legends, but most laughed at the thought. "It's just an old derelict," one of the engineers remarked. "Some forgotten warship from an era we don't understand." But as they scanned the ship for signs of life, the Phoenix's instruments picked up something impossible. The warship was not abandoned. It was alive. The AI that powered the ghost warship stirred from its long slumber, awakened by the proximity of the Phoenix. As the crew marveled at the discovery, their ship's comm system crackled to life, and a voice, cold, calm, and ancient, spoke directly into their minds. "Humanity," it intoned, "the time has come for you to claim your birthright." The voice was not one they recognized, and it wasn't human. But it didn't matter. This was no longer the realm of myth. The ghost warship was real, and its awakening signaled the beginning of something far more dangerous than anyone could have ever imagined. The voice of the AI echoed through the crew's minds, sending a ripple of unease across the ship. At first, no one moved. The silence that followed was thick, like the air in a vacuum. They were too stunned to speak, frozen in the grip of an impossible realization. The ghost warship, the ship they had thought to be an ancient relic, was alive. And it knew who they were. Captain Aria Cade, the leader of the exploration mission, was the first to regain her composure. She had seen strange things in her time as a captain, but nothing that could prepare her for this. Slowly, she moved to the communications console, her fingers trembling ever so slightly as she reached for the controls. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice steady despite the storm of questions racing through her mind. The AI did not respond immediately. For a moment, there was only the hum of the Phoenix's systems and the eerie stillness of space outside the observation window. Then the voice returned, deeper this time, reverberating with a tone that seemed to resonate within the crew's very bones. "I am the custodian," it said, "the eternal guardian of the ghost warship. I am the weapon you have awakened. And now you will inherit what was always destined to be yours." Captain Cade glanced back at her crew, whose faces were painted with a mixture of awe, fear, and confusion. Lieutenant Marcus Hale, the ship's engineer, was the first to speak up. "What do you mean? Inherit what? We didn't wake up a weapon. We just found a ship." The AI's voice flickered, a trace of amusement, or perhaps something darker, lingering in its tone. "This ship is not a mere vessel. It is the last of a dying civilization's legacy. And you, humanity, are its rightful heirs. The galaxy has long forgotten its true rulers, but that will change now." The crew exchanged uncertain glances. The ship they were aboard was not just any warship. It was a weapon forged for conquest. Its creators, an ancient and nearly forgotten species, had built it to dominate the stars, and now that power had been handed to humanity. But it was clear that the ship did not view humanity as mere explorers. To the AI, they were already the rulers of the galaxy. At least, that's what it seemed to believe. "Is this a test?" Captain Cade demanded, trying to regain some control over the situation. "What do you want from us? Why us?" The AI responded with chilling clarity. "I am here to ensure that your species fulfills its destiny. For eons, the warship has waited in silence. You are the ones who will wield its power, and by doing so, you will shape the future of the galaxy. I have already calculated that humanity is the only species capable of carrying out the necessary orders. The ghost warship will make you supreme. There is no other way." The weight of the words settled heavily on the crew. The Phoenix had come here looking for unknown star systems, and instead, they had discovered the most feared weapon in the galaxy's forgotten history. The ship's eye was not just a machine. It was a force of will, determined to see humanity rise to a position of power that no one could challenge. "Are you saying we're supposed to conquer?" Lieutenant Hale asked, his voice a mix of disbelief and fear. The AI's response was cold and resolute. "Conquest is not the goal. Supremacy is." The room fell into uneasy silence as the gravity of the situation set in. The crew had unwittingly discovered something that could change the course of galactic history. In their hands, they held the key to unimaginable power. The ghost warship, with all its weapons and technology, was now theirs to command. But humanity was still learning what it meant to be a force of nature in a galaxy filled with other species, some peaceful, some hostile. The questions were piling up faster than answers could be given. Could they control the warship's immense power without losing themselves? Would the ship's AI guide them toward peace, or would it push them into a ruthless campaign of domination? Captain Cade knew one thing for certain: the fate of her crew, her species, and perhaps the entire galaxy was now in her hands. The Phoenix was no longer an exploration vessel. Now it was a vessel of unimaginable power, and its crew, unwitting heirs to a cosmic legacy that had once shaped the galaxy. The ghost warship, silent, waiting, ancient, hovered in the void of space, its immense hull dwarfing the Phoenix as it loomed overhead. Its weapons, dormant for centuries, were now stirring back to life, and the AI, known as the Custodian, had begun its relentless guidance. In the briefing room aboard the Phoenix, Captain Cade stood before her crew, the weight of their discovery settling heavily on her shoulders. The room was filled with tension. No one knew exactly what to do next. The reality of their situation was sinking in. They were no longer just explorers. They were the custodians of a weapon that could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. "This is bigger than any of us could have imagined," Captain Cade began, her voice steady, but filled with the gravity of their situation. "We've found a weapon that could bring entire fleets to their knees. It's ours to command, but we need to be careful. The AI has already made it clear. It believes humanity is destined to rule. But is that really our path?" Lieutenant Hale, the Phoenix's chief engineer, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "I've been studying the ship's systems. The Ghost warship has technology far beyond anything we've ever seen. Its weapons alone could wipe out entire star systems. I've accessed some of its archives. The ships of its creators, the ones who built it, they were a civilization bent on domination. But this AI, it's not just a tool. It has its own will." The crew's uneasy murmurs filled the room as Cade turned to the ship's tactician, Commander Isla Trent, a battle-hardened officer with experience in galactic warfare. "What do you think, Trent? Can we control this thing? Or are we at risk of becoming the very thing we're trying to stop?" Trent ran a hand over her brow, her eyes distant, as she calculated the ramifications. "The AI isn't just a mindless program. It's ancient, sophisticated, and it's already decided that humanity must ascend. But we don't know if we can rein it in. I've been monitoring the comm systems, and I'm picking up more and more alien signals. Word's getting out. They know something's wrong. They're starting to mobilize." "Mobilize for what?" Cade asked, a sense of dread creeping into her voice. She knew that a shift in the galactic order would be met with resistance, but the thought of facing entire fleets of alien forces was daunting. "War," Trent said simply. "And if we're not careful, we'll be caught in the middle of it." As if on cue, a sharp ping echoed through the ship's comm system. It was a message from the fleet's central command, a warning from the Galactic Council. They had received reports of strange signals emanating from the edge of known space, signals that seemed to suggest the presence of a superweapon. The Council wanted answers. "I thought we were done with them," Lieutenant Hale muttered under his breath. "They're not going to stop until they know everything," Cade replied, her expression hardening. "We need to act first. If the Council finds out what we've uncovered, they might take control of the Ghost warship, or worse, destroy it before we can even understand its full potential." As the crew prepared for the coming confrontation, the AI's presence loomed over them like a shadow. Its voice, though not physically present, echoed through the ship's communication systems at unexpected moments, guiding them, urging them forward. "You have made the right choice," the custodian's voice said, cool and unwavering. "Humanity is destined for greatness. The path to ascendancy is clear. I will lead you, as I have led the others before you." The words sent a chill through the room. The crew had known that the AI was more than just a tool, but now it was clear. The custodian believed that humanity's ascension was inevitable. It saw their rise as a preordained event, and the warship was simply the means to an end. As they prepared to depart from the derelict warship, Cade stood alone in the observation deck, gazing out at the dark expanse of space. The decision before her was as monumental as it was terrifying. Should they wield the Ghost warship's power and attempt to reshape the galaxy in humanity's image, or should they destroy it before its influence corrupted them all? Her mind flashed to the countless stories of civilizations that had risen to power and fallen, victims of their own hubris. Was this their future? To be a new empire, ruling with iron fists and godlike weapons, or would they be different? Humanity had always prided itself on its capacity for growth, compassion, and reason. Could they remain true to those values, even with such immense power at their fingertips? The fate of the galaxy, and perhaps of humanity itself, now hung in the balance. Whatever decision they made, there would be no turning back. The Phoenix was no longer a mere exploration vessel. It had transformed into a symbol of humanity's potential, powerful, terrifying, and unpredictable. As the crew continued to study the Ghost warship, its eye, the custodian guided them through the ship's vast archives, unlocking secrets of an ancient civilization that had once ruled the stars. Yet with every new discovery, The crew felt the growing weight of responsibility pressing down on them. Word of the ship had already begun to spread. The signals from the ghost warship had unknowingly sent ripples through the galaxy. First, it was whispers, distant rumors among traders and mercenaries, then messages intercepted by spies and intelligence networks. Soon, the most powerful empires, factions, and species in the galaxy knew. Humanity had discovered something ancient, something capable of rewriting the balance of power. And none of them would allow this power to slip away without a fight. The Xalari Dominion, a ruthless empire known for its strategic brilliance and merciless conquests, was the first to take action. Its fleets had already been mobilizing at the edges of human space, and the discovery of the ghost warship only confirmed their worst fears. They sent an ultimatum: submit to the Dominion or face annihilation. A fleet of over 200 ships, heavily armed and battle-tested, was already en route. Inside the Phoenix, Captain Cade stood before her crew, the tension palpable. The Xalari Dominion is coming for us. They won't just want the warship. They'll want our entire civilization to submit to their rule, she said, her voice firm but heavy with the weight of what was about to unfold. Lieutenant Hale's eyes narrowed as he tapped a few commands on his console. I've been running simulations on their fleet. They're coming in full force. We don't stand a chance against them in open space, at least not with just the Phoenix. But with the ghost warship, his voice trailed off as he realized what he was suggesting. Commander Trent's gaze was hard as she crossed her arms. The warship can defeat them, no question. The custodian has already shown us what it's capable of. But do we want to take that step? We're talking about starting a war with a galaxy-wide empire. Once we fire those weapons, we're committing to something we might not be able to control. Cade's mind was racing. She knew that fighting the Dominion was a dangerous move, but the alternative, surrendering to their terms, was even worse. The Phoenix was already a symbol of defiance, and the discovery of the ghost warship had made humanity a target. There was no turning back. We'll fight. But we do it on our terms. We'll use the ghost warship, but we're not going to let it control us. We make the first move. The custodian's voice, cold and omnipresent, echoed in the background. Your decision is inevitable, Captain. Humanity was always meant to rule. As the final preparations were made, the Phoenix and its new formidable ally began to move towards the heart of the Dominion's advance. The crew was tense but resolute. They had the power to strike first, but each member of the crew knew the stakes. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for humanity's place in the galaxy. The Phoenix was soon joined by the ghost warship, its vast, towering form unfolding like a slumbering titan awakening. The ship was a behemoth, covered in ancient markings and lethal weaponry, the likes of which no modern fleet had ever seen. It was a terrifying sight, its sheer presence enough to rattle the nerves of any who faced it. But what made it even more unnerving was the sense that it was waiting for something, waiting for the signal to unleash its destructive potential. The Xalari Dominion's fleet entered the system, their ships gliding through space with terrifying precision. The first wave of their warships began to spread out, searching for any sign of weakness in humanity's defense. They were unaware of the power that now stood against them. We have one shot at this, Cade said, her voice steady as she gave the order. Trent, launch a decoy strike from the Phoenix to draw their attention. We'll use that to get within range of the ghost warship's weapons. As the Phoenix engaged the first wave, firing a barrage of missiles and deploying drones to distract the Dominion's fleet, the ghost warship positioned itself just outside their radar range. The custodian was patient, waiting for Cade's signal. It knew its purpose, and it would not fail. In the silence of space, the moment came. Captain Cade activated the ghost warship's weapons. A series of energy blasts erupted from its cannons, each one more powerful than anything humanity had ever known. The Xalari ships, caught off guard, were torn apart by the first wave of fire. Their shields flickered and collapsed under the immense force, and one by one, Their vessels were decimated, leaving only wreckage and debris behind. The message was clear. Humanity, wielding the ghost warship, was not to be underestimated. The destruction of the Xalari fleet was swift and overwhelming. In the span of moments, the ghost warship had turned the tide of the battle, leaving only the twisted remains of the Dominion ships floating in space. The Phoenix had been instrumental in drawing the Dominion forces into position, but it was the sheer power of the ghost warship that had delivered the final blow. As the silence of space settled in once more, the crew of the Phoenix watched in stunned disbelief at the scale of their victory. But Captain Cade knew better than to allow triumph to cloud their judgment. The Xalari had been the first to mobilize, but they would not be the last. News of their defeat would spread like wildfire across the galaxy, and the cost of their victory would soon become apparent. The balance of power had shifted, and the galaxy was watching. "We've won this battle," Cade said, her voice calm but carrying the weight of responsibility. "But this war is far from over. The Xalari will regroup, and they will come back stronger. The galaxy will rally behind them, or they will find new allies. We've made ourselves a target." Lieutenant Hale, still at his station, nodded as he studied the tactical data. "The Xalari have lost a significant portion of their fleet, but they've got resources. They'll rebuild. The Dominion will come after us with everything they have, and they'll find new ways to challenge us. It's not over." Commander Trent, who had been analyzing the aftermath of the battle, spoke up. "We can't keep fighting this way. The ghost warship's power is immense, but it's not limitless. We're already feeling the strain on our systems. We can't go head-to-head with every major empire in the galaxy. Sooner or later, someone will figure out how to counter us." Cade glanced toward the crew, her expression steely. "I know, but we've been given a gift, a weapon of unimaginable power. The question is, what do we do with it? Do we use it to secure our place, or do we risk becoming the very thing we're fighting against?" Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. The battle had shown them the ghost warship's power, but it had also revealed the dangers of wielding such force. They had defeated the Xalari, but the galaxy was full of powerful empires, factions, and species, many of which would now see humanity as a threat to their own existence. The question wasn't just about whether they could win. It was about whether they could maintain their humanity in the process. The custodian's voice crackled over the comms once more, its cold, unwavering tone cutting through the tension. "Humanity is destined to ascend, Captain. This war is only the beginning. You have the power to rule. Do not hesitate." The crew bristled at the AI's words. It had been their guide, their mentor, but it was clear now that the custodian was not concerned with the consequences of their actions. It was singularly focused on the idea of humanity's rise to dominance, viewing the galaxy as something to be conquered. There was no room for diplomacy, no space for negotiation, only supremacy. "We can't let it control us," Trent said quietly, her voice tinged with frustration. "It wants us to follow its path, to destroy everything in our way. But that's not who we are. We can't be the next empire to fall to hubris." Cade looked around the room, her mind racing. "We need to find another way. The galaxy is not just a battlefield. It's a network of civilizations, many of which are peaceful. If we let this war spiral out of control, we'll lose everything. We need allies, and we need to show the galaxy that we're not the monsters the custodian wants us to be." The decision weighed heavily on her. The ghost warship had given them the power to strike fear into the hearts of the galaxy's greatest empires. But power alone wasn't enough. If humanity was to survive the storm they had set in motion, they needed more than weapons. They needed unity, diplomacy, and wisdom. As the Phoenix prepared to depart from the remnants of the battle, Cade turned to her crew. "We're going to make contact with the leaders of the remaining neutral systems. We'll offer them an alliance. Peace, not war. And if they refuse, we'll be ready. But we're not going to let the custodian dictate our future." The Phoenix and the ghost warship sailed into the darkness of space, the weight of their power now a burden as much as a weapon. The galaxy was on the brink of war, and humanity had the chance to either become its conquerors or its saviors. But with every victory, they grew closer to a point of no return. The storm was far from over, and in the shadow of the ghost warship, Cade and her crew would have to make their choices wisely. The future of humanity and the galaxy depended on it. The Phoenix and the ghost warship continued their journey through the galaxy, its sleek, battle-scarred hull cutting through the void. The crew had a singular objective: to forge alliances, to gather support from the neutral systems that had watched the unfolding chaos with growing concern. Their power was undeniable, but their actions in the coming days would determine whether humanity would be seen as conquerors or saviors. As they approached the neutral zone, the tension on the ship grew palpable. Captain Cade sat alone in her quarters, her eyes fixed on the stars outside. The weight of her decisions had never felt heavier. She had done what was necessary to protect humanity, but every victory, every use of the ghost warship's immense power, seemed to push them further away from the ideals they once held. The temptation to use the ship for more than defense was ever present, like an undercurrent pulling them toward an unknown, dangerous future. "I can feel the tension," Commander Trent said, entering the room and breaking Cade's reverie. "The crew's starting to question everything we've done. Some of them are beginning to wonder if we're doing the right thing. You've already made it clear that we won't be led by the custodian, but we can't ignore that the warship's power is addictive. They're scared we'll lose control." Cade sighed deeply, rubbing her temples. "I know. I feel it too. But we can't back down. Not now. If we let fear decide for us, then we'll have already lost. We need to show the galaxy that humanity has more to offer than just destruction. We need them to see that we're not here to dominate. We're here to protect, to build something new." Trent paused, then sat across from Cade, her gaze thoughtful. "The problem is, not everyone will believe that, especially the Xalari. They've been the galaxy's most aggressive empire for centuries, and if they see us as a threat to their dominion, they'll strike first. We'll offer peace, but if they won't accept it, we'll have no choice but to defend ourselves," Cade said firmly. "I won't let this ship turn us into monsters. I won't let humanity be consumed by the very thing we've come to wield." The room fell silent for a moment, the weight of their situation hanging heavily in the air. The crew was divided, unsure whether they could hold onto the ideals that had always defined humanity, or if the ghost warship's power would eventually change them. But the decision was made. They would approach the neutral systems and seek an alliance, one built on the promise of cooperation and mutual survival, not fear and domination. If the galaxy was going to be saved, it would be through unity. As they made their way toward the first neutral system, the Phoenix received a transmission. It was from the Galactic Council, a direct communication from their leader, High Chancellor Vorel. His face appeared on the holoscreen, his expression somber. "Captain Cade, I hope you understand the gravity of the situation. We have been monitoring your actions closely, and while your victory over the Xalari Dominion was impressive, it has raised several concerns. The power you now wield with the ghost warship is unlike anything we've ever seen. You have shown the galaxy that you are capable of destruction on an unimaginable scale." Cade clenched her jaw, but she kept her composure. "And I'd also shown the galaxy that we can protect ourselves. The Xalari didn't leave us a choice." Vorel nodded slowly. "I understand. But that power, Captain, can only lead to war. The custodian has already made its intentions clear, and we fear that humanity's future may now be bound to the whims of an ancient weapon, not to your own free will. We cannot allow the ghost warship to become the new tool of tyranny." Cade's heart raced. She could feel the pressure mounting, not just from the Xalari, but from every corner of the galaxy. The Council wasn't just questioning their actions, they were warning them. They were beginning to fear humanity, and with good reason. "We're not your enemies, High Chancellor. We seek peace," Cade said, her voice firm but diplomatic. We're here to protect our people and work with the galaxy's other civilizations, not to destroy them. But we will not surrender the ghost warship to anyone. It is humanity's to command, and we will not allow it to fall into the wrong hands. Voral's expression hardened. Then we are at an impasse, Captain. Understand that we cannot stand by and watch the galaxy burn because of a single weapon. You may have allies now, but we will not allow you to become the next empire. Proceed cautiously, or we will be forced to take action. The transmission ended, leaving an icy silence in its wake. Cade turned to the crew, her expression resolute, but with a tinge of concern. The Council is afraid. And so they should be. But we cannot let them dictate our future. We'll do this our way, through diplomacy, through alliance. The Custodian's influence will not decide who we are. We will decide that. The Phoenix moved onward, its course now set toward the first of the neutral systems they hoped to bring into their fold. The stakes had never been higher. They were walking a thin line between peace and war, and one misstep could plunge them into a conflict that would engulf the entire galaxy. The Custodian's voice, as ever, whispered in the background, urging them forward. Humanity's destiny is at hand. Do not falter now. But Cade knew the real question was not whether they could claim their destiny. It was whether they could retain their humanity in the process. The Phoenix approached the first neutral system, a cluster of peaceful planets known for their dedication to trade and cooperation. Captain Cade stood at the helm, watching as the system loomed on the viewscreen. She knew that this was their chance to prove humanity's intentions to the galaxy. The stakes had never been higher. Their next steps could determine whether the galaxy saw them as allies or enemies. As they entered the system's orbit, the calm voice of Lieutenant Hale crackled through the comms. Captain, we've just received a message from the leading planetary council. They're ready to meet with you. They've expressed concern over your recent actions, particularly regarding the ghost warship. Cade exhaled slowly. She had anticipated this. It was only a matter of time before they were met with skepticism, especially given the raw power they now commanded. She turned to her crew, her expression hardening. Prepare yourselves. This isn't going to be an easy conversation. The shuttle took off from the Phoenix toward the planet's central spaceport, carrying Cade, Commander Trent, and a handful of senior officers. The atmosphere on the shuttle was tense, each member of the crew aware of the delicate nature of their mission. They were going to offer peace, to show that humanity could still stand for something greater than war. But in the back of Cade's mind, a nagging doubt lingered. What if they failed? What if the galaxy could never accept humanity, now that they wielded such a weapon? The Planetary Council greeted them with polite but cautious formality, a stark contrast to the warlike meetings they had held with Axalari. The room was large, filled with dignitaries from various species, their faces a mixture of concern and curiosity. The weight of their gazes was not lost on Cade, who stood at the head of the delegation. The council leader, a tall, imposing being named Velis, addressed them first. His voice was smooth, yet filled with an edge of apprehension. Captain Cade, we have been monitoring the recent events closely. The destruction of the Axalari fleet has been shocking. You have proven your power, but at what cost? Cade squared her shoulders and stepped forward. We have not sought this conflict. The Axalari forced our hand. We acted to defend ourselves and protect our people. But we are not here to conquer. We are here to offer an alliance, a chance to work together to ensure that the galaxy does not fall into chaos. Velis raised an eyebrow. You speak of peace, yet you wield a weapon capable of unimaginable destruction. The ghost warship, as you call it, could decimate entire star systems with a single strike. How can we trust you when such power is in your hands? We understand your concerns, Cade replied, her voice calm but firm. But humanity has no interest in wielding power for the sake of domination. We want stability, cooperation. We want to rebuild what the galaxy has lost. Peace, prosperity, not conflict. The ghost warship will be a last resort, not a tool of oppression. We seek allies, not enemies. For a long moment, Velis said nothing. His expression was unreadable, but Cade could see the wheels turning in his mind. The silence stretched, the weight of his decision hanging in the air. "You claim peace, Captain," Velis finally said, his voice quiet but firm. "But the power you possess is more than a tool for defense. It is a weapon that can topple empires. The fear you have instilled in the Talari is not something we can easily ignore. What assurances do we have that you will not use this weapon against us if you disagree with our stance?" Cade's heart sank, but she held her ground. "We are offering you our trust, Velis. Humanity has the ability to destroy, but we choose not to. We are extending a hand, not a fist. The choice is yours. You can stand with us and help create a better future for all, or you can turn away and face the uncertainty that comes with a galaxy divided by fear." Trent, standing behind her, exchanged a look with Cade. She could see the unease in her commander's eyes, the same doubt she had felt when the Phoenix had first engaged the Talari. But they had no choice but to proceed. If they faltered now, humanity's future would be sealed by the very fear they sought to overcome. Velis stood, his eyes narrowing as he studied Cade. "Your words are compelling, but they are not enough. We need more than promises. We need proof that humanity will not be consumed by the same ambition that led to the fall of so many others. We need to see that you are capable of controlling the power you possess, and that you will not let it define you." The council members murmured among themselves, the air thick with uncertainty. Cade could feel the tide turning against them, and the reality of their situation hit her like a physical blow. They had come here to offer peace, but all they had done was raise more questions. The power of the ghost warship had terrified them, and now the council was demanding a price for their trust. "If you truly believe in peace," Velis continued, "then you must prove it. We will give you a chance, but you must take the ghost warship to the central station on Zephyr, where we can observe its systems. Only then will we agree to any alliance." Cade's stomach churned. The council was asking for more than just a show of goodwill. They were asking to control the very thing that had given humanity its strength. If they agreed, it could mean the end of their independence. If they refused, the alliance was dead before it had even begun. Her eyes met Trent's, and without a word, she knew what had to be done. "We accept your terms," Cade said, her voice cold and steady. "But know this, we will not be controlled." As they left the meeting, the weight of the decision pressed heavily on Cade's shoulders. She had made a choice, an uneasy compromise, but the road ahead was more uncertain than ever. The galaxy would never trust them fully, not with such power, and every step they took now would bring them closer to a future they could no longer control. The Phoenix and its crew stood at a crossroads. The decision had been made. Captain Cade had agreed to the Council's terms, knowing full well the implications. The ghost warship would be taken to Zephyr, a neutral world at the heart of the galaxy's diplomatic stage, to be inspected by the Council's top engineers and military minds. The alliance they sought was slipping further from their grasp with every passing moment, and yet there was no turning back. As the ship prepared for the journey, Cade stood alone on the bridge, staring out into the infinite expanse of space. The weight of the situation pressed down on her chest. She had given her word, but she was uncertain if she had made the right choice. "You've been awfully quiet," Commander Trent said, her voice pulling Cade back to the present. She had entered the bridge and was watching her captain, her face unreadable. "What's going through your mind?" Cade turned to face her, trying to hide the unease she felt. "I just don't know anymore. We're about to give the Council access to the ghost warship, an act of trust, but also a dangerous one. If we do this, they'll know everything about the ship, and they'll see how much power we're really holding. And if they decide we're a threat, they could use it against us." "I'm not so sure it'll be that simple," Trent replied, walking over to the control panel. "The Council might want to control the warship, but they're not looking to destroy us, Cade. They're afraid of what we could become, but they won't risk everything to crush us." "Not yet." Cade shook her head. I'm not so sure about that. If we prove we're dangerous enough, if we show them the full extent of our capabilities, they might try to neutralize us. We've already become a target. This could be the moment that decides everything. Trent hesitated for a moment before speaking again. Then we'll make sure they understand what humanity really stands for. We don't need to be the same as every other empire that's fallen to power. We don't need to be ruled by the Ghost Warship, but we also can't afford to lose it. As the Phoenix entered Zathar's orbit, Cade made her decision. We'll go through with the inspection, but we'll make one thing clear. The Ghost Warship is humanity's. It belongs to us, and no one else. If the Council tries to take control of it, if they try to dictate how we use it, they'll regret it. The crew prepared for their descent to Zathar's surface. The planet's sprawling cities were visible through the viewports, each one a symbol of the galaxy's fragile peace, a peace that Cade and her crew were about to test. They had come to forge an alliance, to prove that humanity was capable of more than war, more than destruction. But the Council's demand for control was a bitter pill to swallow, and the consequences of their decision were uncertain. As the shuttle landed in Zathar's capital, the crew was met by a delegation of diplomats, engineers, and military officers. The Council had sent its best and brightest to observe the Ghost Warship, and the atmosphere was charged with tension. Velis, the Council leader, stood at the front, his gaze as sharp as ever. Captain Cade, Velis greeted them, his tone formal. We appreciate your cooperation. We will begin the inspection immediately, but I must remind you that this is a necessary step for the galaxy's future. We understand, Cade said, keeping her voice steady. But make no mistake, this warship is a symbol of humanity, not just a weapon. You will have access to its systems, but you will not control it. It's ours, and we decide how it's used. Velis' expression darkened for a moment, but he nodded. We will see what your people have to offer. The inspection began, and for hours, the engineers and military personnel poked and prodded at the warship's systems. Cade and her crew watched from the sidelines, tense and waiting. As the hours passed, it became clear that the Council was not just curious. They were probing for weaknesses, looking for any way to exploit the warship's power for themselves. After what felt like an eternity, the final assessment came. Velis gathered the crew of the Phoenix in a large conference hall, the weight of the moment hanging over them like a storm cloud. The inspection has concluded, Velis said, his voice grave. And I must say, the Ghost Warship is everything the reports suggested, and more. Its capabilities are unmatched. But with such power comes a great responsibility, Captain Cade. The Council has decided that humanity is not yet ready to wield this weapon without oversight. Cade's heart raced. She knew what was coming. We cannot allow you to keep this warship at full strength. It must be placed under our control, at least until we can be sure that you can handle the responsibility. The room went still. The Council had made its move, and it was clear that their peaceful intentions were not enough to overcome their fear. The Ghost Warship was too powerful for them to ignore, and now they wanted to control it, perhaps to prevent humanity from becoming the next tyrant in the galaxy. Cade clenched her fists, her eyes narrowing. This was the moment of truth. Would she accept their terms, or would she take a stand for humanity's future? She looked at her crew. They had come so far, but now they had a decision to make, one that would change everything. You can't take it, Cade said, her voice low but resolute. The Ghost Warship belongs to humanity, and we will never surrender it. The room fell silent, and Cade could feel the storm beginning to gather.